Okay, so last question here. I'll call it example 4 because I think we've done 4 examples of this. Combines what we did in the warm-up with this new idea of the inverse, or find the inverse. So in this case, I'm given h at x equals 7x plus 2, and I want you to find h at 3 and h inverse at 3. So the beginning is just exactly what we did in the warm-up. It's just a matter of taking h at 3. That means I sub in 3 in for x. So this is 21 plus 2 is 23. So therefore, h at 3 is 23. So no different than what we did in the warm-up. In the second one, my advice would be, okay, let's find the equation of the inverse first, and then we can just sub in 3 at the end. So do exactly what we just did, the algebra steps, the 4 algebra steps. So here's my original, y equals 7x plus 2, that's the h function. Now I'm going to take the inverse, so that means I'm going to switch my x's and y's. That's step 2. Isolate for y, I'll do this rather quickly. So minus 7, bring it across. Take that x and make it minus x plus 2. Divide everything by negative 1, so 7y equals positive x minus 2. And then divide everything by 7, and I get x minus 2 over 7. This is the equation of the inverse. Notice I put h negative 1 because I'm using the h function this time instead of the f function from before. Having this equation makes answering the question as easy as what we did in the warm-up. So if you need to push pause to just write that down, feel free. But once we have this, we now just have to go back and say, oh, okay, you wanted h negative 1 at 3. So I'm just going to take 3 and sub it into the inverse function. So it'll be 3 minus 2 over 7, which is just 1 over 7, and there's the answer. So inverse h at 3 is 1 over 7. Of course, this answer is completely different because the inverse function, as you saw graphically, is very, very different. And it produces a different answer. The advantage, of course, of finding the equation first is now I could, ask all sorts of them. I could say, okay, take the inverse, and now I want you to find, let's say, h inverse at, I don't know, 23. Just some number I'm picking off the top of my head. Now I don't have to redo the whole thing. All I need to do is take that 23 and sub it into my inverse function here. So it'll be 23 minus 2 over 7, which is 21 over 7, which is 3. And if I stop and think about this, am I surprised that the answer is 3? Well, no. I didn't randomly pick 23 off the top of my head. Where did I get that 23? Well, I got it right here. And remember, if I put in 3, it spits out a 23 into the original h function. The inverse then would just be taking those and switching the x and the y. So the inverse is 23, 3. So I'm not surprised that I got that answer when I put in 23 into the inverse. Really, this is just an a different question to get you practice these algebra steps in finding the inverse. And that's what you need to practice now. So for the rest of the period, I'd like you to try practicing these, page 43, number 1, 3, 6 AD, 10, 12, 14, 15, and then go back and try number 4. The reason number 4 is out of order there at the end is I'd rather you focus on the first few here, and if you have time to go back and try number 4. So you have the rest of the period to quietly work on that. If you get any of that done, the supply teacher will have additional practice for you to try. So thanks very much, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.